Time for convening having arrived. The Senate will come to order. Would ask unauthorized visitors to exit chamber at this time. Senate will come to order. Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 53rd.
Good morning, Mr. President. It's a beautiful day in our state capital. A little chilly, but it's a beautiful day. A moment in time in history. The famous mayor of Atlanta, Ivan Allen Jr., was born in 1911, a few years ago. The journal's been read and found to be correct.
Thank you, Senator, for your good works on the journal. Is the objection dispensing with the reading of the journal? Reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is the objection confirmation of journal? Chair hears none. The journal is confirmed. All senators having bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading in reference of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 489 by Senator Tippett, 37th, the bill without an enactment and act creating common
State and local governmental operations.
Senate Resolution 1019 by Senator Ginner, the 47th, and others.
Regulated industries.
Senate Resolution 1020 by Senator Strickland, the 17th. The resolution recognized September.
Insurance and labor.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
First reading in reference of House bills and resolutions.
House Bill 1021 by President Hardin, the 148th. The bill without an enactment and act entitled an act to create the Office of Commissioner of Roads and Revenues and for the county.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1022 by President Perkle of the 155th and others. A bill without an enactment and act creating the Board of Education of Coffee County, approved March 10th, 1970, as amended, so as to revise provisions regarding filling vacancies on the board.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1023 by President Spencer of the 180th and others. A bill without an act to create a joint board of elections and registration for Camden County, which shall conduct primaries and elections for Camden County, the city of St. Mary's, the city of Woodbine, and the city of Kingsland, and provide for its powers and duties, provide for effective dates to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1024 by President Workheiser of the 157th. The bill without an act to provide a new charter for the city of Glenville, to provide for boundaries and powers of the city, to provide
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1026 by President Hill of the 3rd and others. A bill without
State
an act.
and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1028 by President Knight of the 130th and others. A bill without an act.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1030 by President Bruce of the 61st and others. A bill without
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1031 by President Collins of the 68th and others. A bill without an act.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1033 by Representative England of the 116th and others. A bill without an act to provide for a non-binding advisory referendum for the purpose of ascertaining whether an
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1034 by President Gassaway of the 28th and others. A bill without an act.
State and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1035 by President Smyer of the
State
130th.
and local governmental operations.
House Bill 1036 by President Martin of the 49th and others. A bill without.
State and local governmental operations.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, City Committee on Judiciary has had a consideration of final legislation instructing board the same back to Senate final recommendation. House Bill 190 do pass by substitute. House Bill 765 do pass. House Bill 834 do pass by substitute. Submitted by Senator Stone, 23rd. Mr. President, City Committee on State and Local Government Operations has had a consideration of final legislation instructing board the same back to the Senate final recommendation. House Bill 724 do pass. House Bill 937 do pass. House Bill 979 do pass by substitute. Submitted by Senator Kirk of the 13th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Public Safety has had a consideration of final legislation instructing the board the same back to the Senate final recommendation. House Bill 779 do pass by substitute. House Bill 149 do pass by substitute. House Bill 992 do pass by substitute. Submitted by Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had a consideration of final legislation instructing the board the same back to the Senate final recommendation. House Bill 878 do pass. Submitted by Senator Jones of the 25th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had a consideration of final legislation instructing the board the same back to the Senate final recommendation. House Bill 718 do pass. House Bill 739 do pass. Submitted by Senator Turpins of the 37th. And Mr. President, Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had a consideration of final legislation instructing the board the same back to the Senate final recommendation. House Bill 782 to pass by substitute. House Bill 982 to pass by substitute. Senate Resolution 983 to pass by substitute. Submitted by Senator Unton of the 45th. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Resolution 953 by Senator Gooch of the 51st and others. Joint study committee on evaluating the school year calendar of Georgia Public Schools create. Senate Resolution 977 by Senator Williams of the 39th and others. Senate Study Committee on historically black colleges and universities create. Senate Resolution 995 by Senator Beach of the 21st. Senate Study Committee on combat sports create. House Bill 121 by Representative Stration of the 104th and others. Trust minor onboard beneficiaries change provisions. House Bill 381 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others. Abandoned Mobile Home Act and Act. House Bill 487 by Representative Bonner of the 72nd and others. Disaster Volunteer Relief Act, granted leave from work with pay in order to participate in specialized disaster relief services. Authorize certain employees of state agencies. House Bill 489 by Representative McCall of the 33rd and others. Local government use Georgia procurement registry in addition to official legal organ to advertise certain bid opportunities provide. House Bill 494 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th and others. Early care and learning, safety of children, and early care and education programs. Revise certain provisions. House Bill 588 by Representative Maxwell of the 17th and others. Employees Retirement System of Georgia, member may purchase annuity. Revised method and manner. House Bill 655 by Representative Williams of the 145th and others. Quality Basic Education Act, post sign containing telephone number to receive reports of child abuse require every public school. House Bill 697, Taylor's 173rd and others, sales and use tax, sale or use of tangible personal property to certain nonprofit health centers, extend exemption for 5 additional years. House Bill 71, Representative Tanner of the 9th and others, state employment drug testing, allow testing for all forms of opioids. House Bill 703 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st and others, Governor's Office of Public Safety Support, create. House Bill 714 by Representative Rogers of the 10th and others, motor vehicles, reference state to federal regulations regarding the safe operation of motor carriers and commercial motor vehicles update. House Bill 723 by Representative Watson of the 172nd and others, sales and use tax, certain veterinary diagnostic and disease monitoring services, create exemption. House Bill 732 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd and others, crimes and offenses, trafficking an individual for sexual servitude provisions. House Bill 740 by Representative Nix of the 69th and others, education local school system to conduct certain screenings, assessments, and reviews prior to expelling a student require. House Bill 743 by Representative Clark of the 98th and others, Jeremy Nelson and Nick Blakely sudden cardiac arrest prevention act and act. House Bill 761 by Representative Ridley of the 6th and others, motor vehicles, filing certificates of titles by dealers provide. House Bill 780 by Representative Williamson of the 115th. Banking and finance, change the provisions applicable to financial institutions provide. House Bill 785 by Representative Nix of the 69th others, solid waste management, certain definitions, modify and act. House Bill 792 by Representative Rogers of the 10th and others, waste management, sunset day for certain solid waste surcharges and hazardous waste fees extend. House Bill 793 by Representative Lauricia of the 169th and others, sales and use tax, certain aquarium construction provide exemption. House Bill 800 by Representative Bond of 72nd and others, workers' compensation, eligibility for appointment as director emeritus and administrative law judge emeritus, change certain provisions. House Bill 818 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others, insurance healthcare providers shall choose the method of reimbursement by insurer provide. House Bill 820 by Representative Beskin of the 54th and others, revenue taxation procedure for counties allowing a rejection of a tax digest established. House Bill 852 by Representative Smith of the 41st and others, Quality Basic Education Act, students continued enrollment in public school under certain circumstances provide. House Bill 856 by Representative Defenbaugh of the 1st and others, Board of Public Safety, add Commissioner of Community Supervision. House Bill 866 by Representative Turner of the 21st and others, Commerce and Trade, charging fee for placing certain security fees on a consumer's account, prohibits consumer credit reporting agencies. House Bill 879 by Representative Jones of the 167th and others, Water Resources, notice to local governing authorities prior to the dewatering of coal combustion residual surface impoundments provide. House Bill 898 by Representative Powell of the 32nd and others, motor vehicles, fleet vehicles, and fleet vehicle registration plans, revised provisions. House Bill 899 by Representative Lauricia of the 69th and others, contracts, limitation on disqualification of bidders, change. House Bill 927 Representative Nimmer of the 178th and others, courts, certain information be provided to caregiver upon replacement of a child require. House Bill 929 by Representative Stration of the 104th and others, water and sewer projects and cost tax most, additional renewals of tax allow. House Bill 930 by Representative Tanner of the 9th and others, Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, creation of certain community improvement districts, provisions. House Bill 972 by Representative Willard of the 51st and others, Human Services, Department of Division of Family and Children Services, to offer extended care youth services under certain circumstances allow. House Bill 995 by Representative Newton of the 123rd and others, local government, certain disclosures from consultants who enter into contracts to prepare requirements for bids provide. House Resolution 444 by Representative McCall of the 33rd, Willie Thomas Murray Memorial Bridge, Lincoln County dedicate. House Resolution 1003 by Representative Green, the 151st and others, property conveyance of certain state-owned real property authorized. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Any motions to excuse? Chair first recognizes Senator from the 22nd.
Good morning. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 43rd.
43rd, without objection, senator from the 43rd to be excused. Chair now recognizes distinguished senator from Columbus, senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 2nd and the 5th.
2nd and 5th, without objection, the two senators will be excused. Chair now recognizes the other senator from Columbus, Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 40th for business outside the Capitol.
40th, without objection, the senator from the 40th be excused. Chair recognizes Senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we excuse the senator from the 17th for business outside the chamber.
17th, without objection, the senator from the 17th will be excused. Are there any other motions to excuse? Any other motions to excuse? Chair now recognizes Senator from the 16th.
Yes, excuse the senator from the 14th for business outside. Oh, okay. He made it. Okay.
He's here. He's here. He refuses to be excused. Refuses to be excused. He wants to cast his vote for the roll call. Any other motions? Chair recognizes Senator 23rd. 23rd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move for, well, never mind.
54th, were you wishing to be recognized? 54th? No, you just yawning, okay. 34th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 33rd. He is in the building.
33rd, without objection, senator from 33rd will be excused. Please, Senator, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The Secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for our morning devotion. Would ask that all senators please take your seats and cease all audible conversation at this time. The Senate is preparing for our morning devotion. Senators, please take your seats. Doorkeepers, if you would, please secure the chamber at this time. It is now my distinct honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 30th for the purpose of leading us in our pledge and introducing our chaplain of the day. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and the Georgia flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce Steve McFall. He's the senior pastor at Central Baptist Church in Douglasville. He has intentionally led Central to be a community stakeholder. Their church is active in both chambers of commerce and their local school system. He carries on the 110-year legacy of Central Baptist Church and is preaching and living the gospel. His efforts have led to a partnership with the Guatemalan First Lady to replace school roofs, provide sanitation, training, and most importantly, share the good news of Jesus Christ. Steve received his bachelor's from Samford University and his postgraduate degree with emphasis in biblical languages from Southwestern Baptist Seminary in Fort Worth. Steve and his wife Stephanie have been married for 32 years and have 4 amazing children. Zoe, Ethan, and Worth are all continuing to do wonderful works to help their fellow man. The one that we all know here best is the tremendous Macy. Macy works in the Lieutenant Governor's office and has been with us now for a good while. Please join me in welcoming Steve McFall.
Thank you, Senator Dugan, and thank you for serving our district so well in which our church, Central Baptist Church, is located. Today I also extend my gratitude to Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle and to all of you senators who serve the great state of Georgia. I'm so proud, as Mike Dugan has already told us about Macy, and so today she just doesn't want me to embarrass her. So there's a prominent figure, a prominent man in the New Testament that the scripture shares with us 3 times that he appears in the gospel according to John. And I'd encourage you on your phones, if you might just quickly look up that Bible app or just go to Google and just Google John chapter 3. And we're going to see this man, Nicodemus. Would you locate that passage with me, and would you follow along with me as I read from John chapter 3? In verses 1 through 3 it says, "And now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish ruling council. And he came to Jesus at night and said, 'Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the signs you are doing if God were not with him.' And Jesus replied, 'Verily, verily, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again.'" You see, Nicodemus was a prominent leader, just as you are. Men and women who are well educated, some very versed in the law, and even more elected by a democratic process. Nicodemus comes to Jesus by night. Some say he was nervous about being with Jesus, so he came to have a private conversation. This is what I love about Jesus, or those private conversations. This is what I see in Nicodemus. Even though Vice President Mike Pence experienced the critics saying, "You heard God speak to you," maybe it was the same ridicule Nicodemus was trying to avoid. I have never heard God audibly speak to me. It's much louder than that. Our very souls have a USB connection, a high-definition jack, the highest pixel beyond human understanding that God translates his voice to us. The Holy Scripture seems to be that fiber optic cable that transmits his voice to our very souls. I believe every soul has this capability to hear the voice of God. Nicodemus is a member of the Sanhedrin. It's the highest ruling council in Jerusalem. He had been in session really all day. That was their practice. Nicodemus' education would have been as advanced as a law degree in today's life, even if not more. You see, sometimes we've portrayed Christianity as really a faith for the ignorant, the uneducated, but really it's the opposite. Jesus answered the unspoken question that Nicodemus had. How can I experience the kingdom of God? How can I have this life which my soul cries out that I was created for? And in the study of the Old Testament scripture, the unspoken question is how? Jesus said, "You must be born again." Our own and only native president, Jimmy Carter, understood the risk of this phrase. Jesus said, "The God life, the life you were created to experience, is unavailable without a spiritual rebirth." Jesus goes on to explain, this is a spiritual birth. It must happen to you to experience the life that God created us all to have. Then Nicodemus leaves, but then we see him again, this time in a tense and most fascinating discussion among his peers as they seek to apply the law to a situation. If you'll scroll down to John chapter 7 and verse 45, here's the conversation. In the Word of God, it says, "Finally, the temple guards went back to the chief priests and the Pharisees, who asked them, 'Why didn't you bring him in?' That is, why didn't you arrest Jesus and bring him in?" "No one ever spoke the way this man spoke," the guards replied. "You mean he deceived you also?" the Pharisees retorted. Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed in this man?" "No, but this mob that knows nothing of the law, there is a curse on them." Nicodemus, who had gone to Jesus earlier and who was one of their own number, that is, the Pharisees or the Sanhedrin, asked, "Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he has been doing?" They replied, "Are you a Galilean too? Look into it, and you will find that a prophet does not come from Galilee. Had Nicodemus experienced the rebirth? I believe the spiritual rebirth helps you to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. Personally, I believe it is a document written by regenerated man that speaks about how regenerated man should live and how it helps us to restrain unregenerated man. And an unregenerated man can fully not grasp it. But listen, there are two powerful statements that should grasp your senators by the veins that bleed: law and justice. The Jewish legislator says, they, the common people, do not know the law, and because of that, they are accursed. Wow, what a statement. Nicodemus is feeling already the religious intolerance from his peers, and they are saying to him, are you from the area of Galilee? Are you favoring this Galilean? Nicodemus' response is a Supreme Court brief on justice. Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he has been doing? Is that not an amazing piece of Scripture? Isn't that what our Constitution is all about? The answer to that question is seen in the next appearance of Nicodemus in John chapter 19, verse 38. Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now, Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. And Nicodemus had bought a mixture of myrrh and aloe, about 75 pounds. Jesus was crucified because of a hate-driven religious intolerance. Wow. Wow is probably one of my favorite spiritual life words. This time, though, it is woe. And who is there now? Who is it? We see Nicodemus, who is identifying himself with the Savior of the world. Nicodemus, an educated lawyer leader, publicly standing now for his new faith in the Savior of the world. You know, E.W. Jackson is one of my favorite contemporary attorneys. Some of you may have heard E.W. Jackson, a great African-American law graduate from Harvard. While at Harvard Law School, E.W. Jackson was just asked by his dad, why don't you read the Bible? And E.W. Jackson actually took that challenge on. He said, this would be a sophisticated thing for me to do and it'd make me a more well-rounded person, versed really in our culture. As E.W. Jackson read the Bible, there was something that began to happen to him. He became a Nicodemus. He placed his faith and trust in Jesus Christ. And so after he finished Harvard Law School, he went on to Harvard Divinity School. And today, he's a great spokesman for the Christian faith. Today, let the Word challenge us. Help us to make us the regenerated leader that can be the best leader ever. Let's pray together. God, we want to thank you today for your Word. I want to thank you, God, that you tell us that it provides life itself. That through it, God, we can find a spiritual rebirth, a spiritual regeneration, and we're so grateful for that. Today, God, I'm thankful for the great state of Georgia, and I'm thankful, God, for these senators, men and women, God, who've given their life and their service. I want to thank you, God, for their education and, God, for their pursuit of justice and law. I pray, God, that you would bless them in every endeavor, God, that you would make your hand of prosperity be upon them. And, God, may our great state of Georgia, God, continue to be a great state. Would you bless it, Lord? In Jesus' name, amen.
We recognize Senator from the 15th to recognize some special guests in the gallery.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take this time to offer the folks a big welcome from Marion and Macon County in the gallery up there, a great leadership body, and I ask the Senate, please stand so we can give you a big round of applause. The people from Macon and Marion County, give them a big round of applause. Thank you for coming and sharing in the electoral process. Thank you.
If I could have the Senate's attention, we would like to present the Doctor of the Day, and it's my pleasure now to call upon the distinguished senator from the 50th to introduce our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I haven't had a Doctor of the Day for my district in a couple of years, and now I've got two back-to-back. But we're really happy to have Dr. Clark Hill with us today. He's a native of Banks County and a graduate of Oglethorpe University and the Mercer University School of Medicine. He completed an internal medicine residency at Georgia Baptist Medical Center. He's board certified in internal medicine and hospice care. He owns the Hill Medical Group with offices in Commerce and Homer. Dr. Hill is very active in his community. He is past president and a current member of the Commerce Kiwanis Club, past chairman of the Downtown Development Authority, a member of the Commerce Athletic Booster Club, and he is serving his second term as mayor of the City of Commerce. Dr. Hill has been one of Georgia Trend's 40 Under 40 and was a member of the 2015 class of Leadership Georgia. Dr. Hill, thank you for the service you provide for your community and for being with us today, and at this time I'll call on you to make remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator, for having me. Also, thanks to MAG and for GMDA for making this possible for me to join you today. You guys have done such a great job making Georgia a great place to practice medicine, and I want to thank you for that while I have the opportunity. But finally, I know firsthand as a local public servant how thankless the job can be, and most often we get those calls from constituents and they're negative calls or negative emails or in opposition of what we're trying to do. So thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for your service to the state of Georgia and for your individual districts. Thank you.
Well done. We have a special group we would like to recognize. At this time, Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 908 by Senators Untum, the 45th, and others, a resolution commending the Georgia residents who have type 1 diabetes and whose families continually educate and advocate in recognizing March 16, 2018 as Type 1 Diabetes Day at the State Capitol and for other purposes, whereas more than 8,000 children and an unknown number of adults in Georgia live with type 1 diabetes, and whereas there are approximately 500 children diagnosed each year in the state of Georgia, and whereas the need exists for education to increase knowledge, encourage advocacy, and promote safe care for those living with type 1 diabetes. Now there will be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize March 16, 2018 as Type 1 Diabetes Day at the State Capitol. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair is none. The resolution is adopted. It's now my honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 45th to speak to the resolution and recognize our very special guest.
Thank you, Governor. It's my honor to be able to bring before you again this year the advocacy group for type 1 diabetes. And you should have on your desk a candy that is Lifesavers. And along with that is taped to a card, a very bright colored card, and it tells you the symptoms of type 1 diabetes in the Awareness Day. And that was one of the most important things I want you to remember about today. What are the symptoms of diabetes? Extreme thirst, fatigue, increased appetite, increased urination, lethargy, or losing weight. We are very, very honored today to have before us paging at least 8 members that are pages that have type 1 diabetes. And as you know, type 1 diabetes is usually diagnosed in children or young adults, and it's previously known as juvenile diabetes. It is a chronic disease, but with diagnosis, education, and perseverance, it is treatable, and young people can lead productive and good quality of life. So we're very delighted to have with us the Stone family, who we all know, and to talk about what is early diagnosis, treatment, and most importantly, what they've dedicated their family and their life for is education. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Della Tripp Stoner. Some of you know my husband, former State Senator Doug Stoner. I have type 1 diabetes myself. Today, serving you is close to 8 pages today, living with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is not exactly something that's easy to manage. It's 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Diabetes never sleeps with us. We constantly prick our fingers, we constantly give it injections, and we constantly watch with vigilancy our glucose levels. So when you see these students today serving you as page, they'll all have buttons that say T1D looks like me, and also the pen, lapel pin that's placed with the lifesavers on as well. Please acknowledge them and thank them for coming. They're here to educate you, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have about their treatment plans in type 1 diabetes. Thank you very much.
Well done, well done. So much better than Doug.
Yes.
Let's do a picture there. We have another special group we would like to recognize at this time, and the Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 860 by Senators James XXXV and others, a resolution recognizing the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce on the grand occasion of its 71st anniversary and for other purposes. Whereas the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce started in 1947 as the East Point Chamber of Commerce and over time merged with the College Park Chamber of Commerce and the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce before becoming independent again in 2002 as the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. And whereas as the official voice of the South Fulton business community, the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce has done an excellent job of working with state, county, municipal, business, education, religious, and community leaders to improve the economic development climate for the state of Georgia and to ensure that South Fulton is a place where business blooms. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce on the grand occasion of its 71st anniversary and wish it continued success. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It is now my distinct honor to call upon the distinguished senator from 35th to speak to the resolution and recognize our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I am so excited. Today is South Fulton Day and Constituent Day in the state capitol under this gold dome. And I see the excitement, and it's been going on all day long since early this morning. And we have with us the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce President, CEO, Diane Matthews, who's going to introduce the members of her board. And also we have many of our elected officials from Hateville, East Point, College Park, Union City, Fairburn, Palmetto, even Chattahoochee Hills. And we also have the Georgia World War I Centennial Commission, Dr. Lamar Velch from the Heritage Association. And of course, that's the Soldier Boy statue that we passed a piece of legislation about, and that's the monument that was discovered in Fairburn, Georgia, that is the oldest permanent monument that we have from World War I in the whole country. And he is here today too, so we will give him his resolution to do today also. But first, I'd like to introduce the president and CEO of South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, Diane Matthews, who is my childhood friend, who made me get my first whipping from my mother because she and my sister were best friends, and we were supposed to be waiting for my mother at school, and they talked me into going to Diane's house with my sister. And my mother got there and couldn't find us. So my mother didn't care. She whipped both of us. So Diane, I love you, but you made me get a whipping. Come on up. And I love you.
And thank you, Donzella. I just want you to know that I also got a whipping that day as well. But at any rate, so we're even. Hello, everyone. This is such an honor on behalf of the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce and our board of directors, which we have some here and some in the gallery. We have our board chairman, Walter Vincent, with Hartsfield Jackson. We have our co-VP of Economic Development, Kurt Kraft, with Greystone, and Joyce Rhodes, formerly of Fulton County Economic Development, as well as our Intergovernmental Affairs board member, who happens to be someone most of you know, Mr. Kip Carr over here. And we have Terrence Albritton up there. He's our CFO with BB&T Bank. And if I missed any other board members, please stand. But I also want to introduce all of the wonderful LaShanta Taylor with the ATL DMO. Hi, LaShanta. And everyone from South Fulton, please stand up. That's up there in the gallery so we can see you. And we have many more here today, too. They just didn't make it up to the floor. But we just want to thank you so much for recognizing us. It means so much. This is our 70th year, and we're just thrilled to be here and continue working with you, our state senators and state representatives, to get things done for South Fulton County and all of our 8 cities within South Fulton. Thank you so much.
And I would like for our Fulton County senators to stand with me as we present these resolutions to our South Fulton Day Chamber of Commerce. You want to Diane Matthews, I'll present it to you, but we will give copies to everyone. Yes. You want to say something? And you want to present this one for Soldier Boy to Fairview.
As a new senator, South Fulton has a special place in the district because I spend a lot of time there, and I'll be there tonight for a community meeting. But we also want to thank you, Senator James, for your work on these resolutions. We want to recognize Dr. Michael Gunther and Lourdes Dunn.
And give it to Dr.
And we're going to give the resolution to Dr. Lamar Veach with the Heritage Association with the Georgia World War I Centennial Commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate that so much. Great. Thank you all so much. Let's do a picture down on the steps, okay? Excellent. No.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
We have another special resolution. We would like to recognize a special group at this time.
Senate Resolution 997 by Senators Butler, the 55th, and others, a resolution honoring the life and memory of Agnes Doster and for other purposes. Whereas the state of Georgia mourns the loss of one of its most distinguished citizens with the passing of Agnes Doster on December 4th, 2017. Whereas Agnes worked for 40 years in the Secretary of the Senate's office at the Georgia State Capitol and enjoyed traveling, taking her grandchildren on trips, and spending time with her friends and family. And whereas a compassionate and generous woman, Agnes will long be remembered for her love of family and friendship and will be missed by all who had the great fortune of knowing her. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body join in honoring the life and memory of Agnes Doster and express their deepest and most sincere regret at her passing. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It is a very huge honor today to recognize certainly the family of Agnes. What a special lady she was to so many of us that knew her for so many years. Obviously, we have a special guest in the gallery today, Bob Ewing, who was a former Secretary of the Senate, who served many years with Agnes as well. And so it's my honor now to call upon the distinguished senator from the 55th to speak to the resolution and recognize our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor is exactly right. Agnes Doster was a very, very special person to all of us. I call her, and I know you've heard of the song that's solid as a rock. Well, she was steady as a rock. Miss Agnes, as we all lovingly called her, was born in Snellville. She passed away on December 4th, 2017. Actually, she was born in Forsyth, but she lived in Snellville. She is survived by her husband of 61 years, John Robert Doster, son and daughter-in-law, John Derek and Rhonda, their children, Gabriel and Colt, daughter and son-in-laws, Tom and Robin Lotspeck, their children, John and Hannah, daughter and son-in-law, Scott and Emily Chesser, their children, Matthew and Laney. As a matter of fact, Laney paid for us just a few weeks ago. Ms. Agnes worked for 40 years in the Secretary of the Senate's office in this Capitol. She was an active member of First Baptist Church of Snellville for 45 years, steady as a rock. Over the years, she enjoyed singing in the choir, playing the handbells, directing weddings, and teaching 2-year-olds in Sunday school. She was also an active member of the Citizens of Georgia Power and the Ambassadors, a Georgia Power retiree group. She enjoyed traveling, taking her grandkids on trips, and spending time with family and members. Oftentimes, Miss Agnes was like a mother to you. I would just go by and see her just to say hello. We always needed something for her, but it was a special time when I could just go by and say hello and see how she was doing. She lived in Snellville, which is in my district, and she let me know early on that she was my constituent. Ms. Agnes was laid to rest on December 8th, 2017. And up here with us is, oh, I didn't see you, Senator. Senator from Chickamauga. And Senator Frank Ginn, are you here? Oh, you back here. Her son lives in Senator Ginn's district. So I'm going to ask her son, John Derek, to come up and say a few words and accept the resolution.
Thanks, Senator Butler. Thank you, President, to have us today. This place is a beloved feature of my mother's life, and we thank you for the kindness that you showed her over the years. We thank you for the friends and family that's been made. We've seen several friends here. Thank you for friends that are in the gallery. We're just honored and humbled to be here today to support the resolution and the adoption of that. We wouldn't have missed it for the world. I know my mother loved this place and loved those that worked here, and the courage it takes for those that to enter into office to do the things that you do. And we thank you again very much.
Awesome. Well done. Well done. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'll tell you, I love your mom. She's a great lady. Let's do a picture down on the steps. Are there any unanimous consents? Any senator wishing to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair recognizes Senator from the 27th first on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise this morning, first of all, to compliment and to congratulate the school superintendents of Cobb County as well as Gwinnett County whenever they stood strong yesterday and put the interests of educating their students above those of the individuals from the left, the progressive movements that were using our children to advance their political agendas. I also want to talk about the need to protect our students while in school. Shortly after the horrific incident that happened down in Florida, we put out a plan, a school safety plan, that would, in essence, arm those teachers that choose to be armed. Not just randomly give them guns, but also give them the training and the requirements that they need to safely handle the gun and to protect our children. Donald Trump, President Trump, 2 days after I put forth our plan, came out pretty much with the exact same plan. I was excited to hear that, and even more excited to hear that he is working with Congress to institute a grant program to help those states and those school systems that will pay for the training that these teachers will need. I'd like to urge the Senate as well as all of the school systems around the state to take advantage of this grant that will come forward from our president and do what we can to protect our students by arming our teachers. Again, only those that choose to be armed, and give them the necessary training that they need. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from Cobb County, the senator from the 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. It's my pleasure as a proud graduate of Georgia State University. I know many of you also, that is your alma mater. Their basketball team today is in Nashville, Tennessee, and tomorrow they'll be playing in the NCAA tournament of the first round at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. They're going to be playing the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. I want to ask you to show your support and appreciation for our team and to use your social media, Twitter and Facebook, to wish them well. Their social media hashtag is @GeorgiaStateMBB. I know we're all proud of all that Georgia State stands for, both of their academic achievements as well as their achievements on the sports arena fields. But I do appreciate all they do and want to ask your encouragement for our team while they're in Nashville. Thank you so much, and we wish them much good luck in this process.
Chair recognizes senator from the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quite a year it's been so far, and so far I've been able to stay out of the well talking about this, but it appears today in regulated industries, here we go again. we got an opportunity to talk about gambling. So we got daily fantasy sports coming up. Once again, I would reiterate, we are a state that is focused on families. We do not need to disrupt that. We're #1 in the country to do business 5 years in a row. There is no reason whatsoever for us to in any way undermine that with something like daily fantasy sports. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
Chair now recognizes distinguished senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rose yesterday to discuss briefly the very positive exchange we had as a legislative delegation representing Muskogee County with young people in our middle and high schools via teleconference yesterday morning. It was very constructive. It was a very positive way to discuss school safety and gun law issues. What I don't think was constructive was allowing students all over the state to walk out of school. And I'm going to tell you why. Many people, maybe many school administrators, agree with the idea of having more gun control, for example. What happens when there's a national call for a walkout on the day that the March for Life is celebrated in Washington, D.C., and people are asking for people to walk out of schools to stand in solidarity with unborn children who are being killed every day in our state and around the country? What happens when there's a political cause or issue that people disagree with? I mean, you could literally have students doing this every day. So while all of us believe very strongly in free speech and free expression, going along with that is a long legal history of reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on that speech. But I think that the precedent that was set yesterday is a very unfortunate one that's going to be tested in the future when students who are taking on a cause that may not be popular with administrators or bureaucrats try to exercise the very same rights. And many of us are going to be there to make sure that they are treated the same way that students were treated yesterday. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair now recognizes the distinguished senator from Brunswick, senator from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to bring you more good news, this time for the children in need of foster care and adoption in South Carolina. A few months ago, the largest faith-based agency in South Carolina was told that it would have to close its doors. It would lose its license because it was placing children in Christian homes. But fortunately for the children in that state, the children in need, the governor came out this week and issued an executive order just confirming that they could remain in business and continue to operate in accordance with their faith. And what is also encouraging is that the business community there did not rise up against it. They didn't complain because they apparently, as too, recognize that we need to help these children that are facing some pretty staggering odds. Well, the good news for children in Georgia is that we have the opportunity to do the same for them. We have Senate Bill 375, and this would open doors, as confirmed by testimony in our committee, to more opportunities for these children in this state. So in like manner, I'm asking our business community to step forward, to have compassion and to have a heart for these children, and let's support the passage of this bill. We have too many kids, too many children in foster care in need of adoption. They need one more door of opportunity open to them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from the 36th. 36th on a point of personal privilege. Were you wishing to be recognized, Senator? You are recognized at this time.
you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise to share some remarks on the question of gun violence, school safety, and a movement that is growing across this country, absolutely demanding that elected officials find a backbone and do something about the proliferation of guns and weapons in the hands of the wrong people. We've had already 2 speakers today assail yesterday's action by students across the country, along with the preposterous proposal to arm teachers who tell us in no uncertain terms that is not why they sought an education and dedicated their lives to the next generation of educating our children and building for a future, was not to tote a gun in a classroom. We have bills in committees, and they have been there, I would say, introduced multiple times in both chambers, asking for some common sense changes to our gun laws. They are not heard. The behavior of the leadership is as though those bills do not exist. I had a very simple bill limiting the ammunition supply for those big multiple shootout situations. We've had bills. One time, the last time that we did a true reform on gun policy in this country was when Ronald Reagan was almost killed by a lone gunman, and we limited access to those semi-automatic military weapons. And that policy was in place for some years. It was not renewed. It was a policy that worked. We have proposals to limit access to possession of a weapon for those involved in domestic violence. We have, we learned that the shooter in the small church in Texas had actually, in fact, cracked the skull of his small child and broken his wife's arm and was put out of the military service, but they didn't deem it necessary to report him to the National Registry. So on every hand, because of the insidious influence of the National Rifle Association, on every hand, we have elected officials turning their backs on common sense gun safety proposals. Yes, turning your backs and trying to accuse the young people and the children who face down being shot at in their school and have lost 17 of their classmates in cold blood on the floor, and saw that and witnessed that and lived through that day, and we stand up here and make speeches about that these children are controlled by the left, the evil left, and the progressives. Not true. There's a youth movement in this country. It's coming on strong. Bob Dylan's song still rings clear. If I could just remember it. It says, get out of the way. If you don't understand it, get out of the way, because a new day is coming. And the youth are speaking up, and they're telling the adults, those of us here and across this country, seated in chambers and with our ability to make policy, listen to the cry of the people and be responsive. You know, there's one person running for governor that never got a rating by the NRA in Georgia, and I'm proud we've got somebody on the ballot that can take that strong stand. I'm leaving the well. I have used my time, and I appreciate your listening to me.
We have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions. Is there objection? Without objection, the consent calendar of privilege resolutions are therefore adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? You have a consent calendar on on the local bills. Mr. Secretary, are there any filed objections?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection? Agree and report a committee on the state and local governmental operation which failed past the bill. Chairs none. Report of committee is agreed to. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary, unlock the machine. You're voting on the local consent calendar. Senator, from the 13th, our 11th, your light's on. What purpose? On the local consent calendar, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 0. This bill, AMC Rex Constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. It's time to move on to the general calendar. Chair will recognize Senator from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House Bill 769 be engrossed.
Read the caption. Senator's moving for engrossment.
House Bill 769 by residents of the diasporas of the 11th and others. The bill will be titled and act to amend Chapter 4, Title 26, and Title 31 of the OCGA relating to pharmacists and pharmacies and health respectively so as to implement recommendations from the House Rural Development Council and for other purposes.
Senator has moved for engrossment of House Bill 769. Is there objection? There is objection. All those in favor of engrossing House Bill 769 will rise, stand, and be counted. Rise, stand, and be counted. You are in favor of engrossment. Reverse. On the motion for engrossment, the yeas are 27, the nays are 17, and the motion has failed. Senator from the 45th, what purpose you rise?
Could I ask for reconsideration, please, on the engrossment? And the reason being is because this is a very complicated rural tax credit bill. It did come out of Health and Human Services, and I understand the resistance to it, but it has a very complicated tax formula involved in it, and we would like to ask for reconsideration.
Senator has asked for reconsideration of on the motion for engrossment. All of those in favor of the motion for reconsideration will rise, stand, and be counted. If you are in favor of reconsidering the actions of the Senate, rise, stand, and be counted. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th. What purpose do you
Parliamentary
rise?
inquiry. Could I
State.
ask for the yeas and nays to be placed on the board, please?
We already have vote. We already started voting. Reverse. On the motion for reconsideration, the yeas are 24 and the nays are 5. And the motion for the motion to reconsider has passed. So the Senate has reconsidered its actions on engrossment of the bill. Chair recognizes Senator on the 45th.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I understand, Mr. President, isn't it true that this is a very serious vote, and for that reason I'm asking for it to be placed on the board with the yeas and nays?
Senators move for yeas and nays. Shall the yeas and nays be sustained? You're in favor of the yeas and nays being sustained. Clearly 5 having voted. All of those in favor of engrossing House Bill 769 will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. Chair recognizes Senator from the 11th. Nope. On the motion for reconsideration, I'm sorry, the motion for engrossment. We've already done the reconsideration. Engrossment, the yeas are 39, nays are 13, and House Bill 769 has been engrossed. Secretary will read House Bill 344.
House Bill 344, by Representative Dempsey the 13th and others, a bill we titled an act to amend Code Section 19754 of the OCGA relating to motion to set aside determination of paternity so as to allow parties beyond movements in a case concerning a child support order to request a genetic test from the Department of Human Services under certain circumstances and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to House Bill 344, a bill titled an act to amend Code Section 19754 of the OCGA relating a motion to set aside determination of paternity so as to allow individuals other than movements in a child support case to request a genetic test from the Department of Human Services under certain circumstances and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I bring before you House Bill 344. This is really just a cleanup where we changed this law a few years ago that allows for the Department of Family and Children's Services to do paternity testing for everyone who's collecting child support. And somewhere along the way on line 12, and I'm sure this happened in the other chamber and the Judiciary Committee because it certainly didn't happen in ours, but some attorney said, well, we need to add this word called movant. And when they did that, they didn't realize they put it in conflict with other state law that you can't be a movant unless you petition the court with a paternity test. So we're just changing movant to individual. I ask for your favorable consideration. No questions, I'll yield the well.
Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute? Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Now, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill Is the objection agreed and reported to committee? Which favor will pass the bill. Chair is none. Reported committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Any objection? Chair is none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 36, you had a group you'd like to recognize. You're recognized this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just take a moment, and I appreciate the courtesy extended to me, to recognize guests in the balcony. We have passed a resolution to create October 9th as Pandas Awareness Day at the state capitol. And that resolution addresses the fact that there is a new set of symptoms that have been determined by the National Institutes of Mental Health, that 1 in 200 children have this condition, and it's called PANS or PANDAS. It's a pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, often following extensive strep infections. Doctors and healthcare providers are still getting up to speed on this. There's research being done, and we have the deep medical and bioscience resources here in Georgia to be a part of that research. I have families in my district, many of you may as well, who have learned how their child contracted this, and there are treatments for it, but you must have it diagnosed. And so Pandas Awareness Day will continue to spread the word. And the Southeastern Pandas Association, SEPA, is here with us today. They're a Georgia-based nonprofit organization. They're down in room 230, and I'd like to ask the family members that are here who are standing up for awareness for pandas, for research and treatment, to please stand in the balcony, including Jessica Goins, my constituent. Here we are. If you can welcome them today and appreciate their advocacy. And they will be in Capitol Room 230 when we adjourn. Thank you.
On the pass of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0, and this bill, AMC records constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Senator from the 13th, if you'll approach 13th. Approach, please. Chair recognizes, Secretary will read House Bill 751.
House Bill 751 by Representative Powell, 32nd, and others. The bill will be titled enactment Chapter 3 of Title 38 of the OCGA relating to emergency management so as to establish the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, to amend Title 46 of the OCGA relating to public utilities and public transportation so as to revise the Georgia Emergency Telephone Number 911 service and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to House Bill 751. A bill will be titled enactment Chapter 3 of Title 38 of the OCGA relating to emergency management so as to establish the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, to provide for definitions, provide for a short title, provide for members, powers, duties, and responsibilities of the authority, provide for a board of directors and executive director of the authority, to provide for legal services for the authority, to provide for remittance of certain 911 charges to the authority, to provide for payment by service suppliers to the authority, to provide for administrative costs, and provide for audits and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 18th to present the bill.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. I bring to you this bill that is going to sound and look very familiar because you'll remember that we voted and passed on a 911 bill last year. It had the overwhelming support of this body as well as from the House side, and I appreciate your support last year, and I'm here to ask for your support again. I'm back this year because the governor vetoed the bill for two principal reasons. The bill that we passed last year created an independent authority that really did not have sufficient oversight. There also was a question with regard to the funding mechanism as it related to the Department of Revenue. So it was vetoed, but this bill that I bring to you brings the substance and the good model that was created last year in the 911 bill last year. This bill helps modernize our 911 system. It provides state-level oversight for the new system that we'll have, and it also importantly fixes the issue that we had or that we currently have in some ambiguity in the statute that produced some litigation between the utility providers and the counties, and so this seeks to address that as well. What does it do? Well, it eliminates the inequities of prepaid wireless rates by making the 911 fee $1.50 per month for all types of service. It eliminates also the cost recovery provisions in the billings, and that's partly what created the litigation that I alluded to a minute ago. Substantively, it creates the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, and that will be attached to GEMA and Homeland Security with a board made up of local government, state government, and service provider representatives. The authority will serve as the coordinating body for all 911 activities in the state, and it will include certain things that will be necessary, such as developing standards for a statewide emergency 911 system. It also provides a statewide auditing of the service suppliers to ensure compliance with the necessary payments for the 911 fees and to make sure they're accurate. It also provides oversight of service suppliers to ensure compliance and uniformity across the state, and also will provide for the collection of these 911 fees that are paid by the service suppliers in a centralized location. They'll be reported and remitted on a monthly basis. If you'll see on your desk, I put an ACCG legislative advocacy sheet that's got their bullet points. I will tell you and represent you that all the stakeholders have come together and cooperated in the formation of this bill, and all the stakeholders that I'm aware of are in support of this. And finally, I'd like to thank the governor's office and Governor Deal for his work to put something in place between the bill we passed last year and this bill, because the model that we're presenting in this bill is largely what the governor has proposed, and it's a good one, and I would urge your support, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
No questions, Senator.
Thank you. I yield the will.
Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute? Is there objection? Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed in the report of committee which failed pass the bill? Chairs none, report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? The objection, chairs none, main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the pass of the bill, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 3. And this bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 754.
House Bill 754 by Representative Shaw of the 176 and others. A bill will be titled enactment Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to provide for the division of a domestic insurer into 2 or more resulting domestic insurers, to provide for definitions, to provide for a plan of division subject to approval by the insurance commissioner, to provide for certificate of division, provide for the effect of a division, to provide for the responsibilities of a resulting insured, to provide for a shareholder appraisal rights, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 9th to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise to present HB 754. This is a bill that's going to allow Georgia domestic insurers to divide into 2 or more insurance companies. This comes because in current law, if you're trying to get out of a certain area of insurance, it's very cumbersome and difficult to do this. This is going to make Georgia a better place for insurers to do business. It's going to make the business environment better for us, and hopefully we'll have other insurers come and set up shop here in Georgia. There are protections for consumers and protections for shareholders in here. If there are any questions, I will yield. If there are no questions, I will yield the well.
No questions, Senator.
Ask for your favorable consideration.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed and the Porter Committee which failed pass the bill? Chairs none. Porter Committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the pass of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, MC Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary will read House Bill 769.
House Bill 769 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th and others, a bill we titled enactment Chapter 4 of Title 26 and Title 31 of the OCGA relating to pharmacists and pharmacies and health respectively, so as to implement recommendations from the House Rural Development Council relating to health care issues, to provide revised provisions relative to pharmacy practices, to provide for and revised definitions, for revised provisions relative to credentialing and billing, to provide for the establishment of the Rural Center for Healthcare Innovation and Sustainability, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the City Committee on Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 769, a bill we titled Act to amend Chapter 4 of Title 26 and Title 31 of the OCGA relating to pharmacists and pharmacies and health respectively, so as to implement recommendations from the House Rural Development Council relating to healthcare issues, to revise provisions relative to pharmacy practices, to provide for and revise definitions, to provide provisions relative to credentialing and billing, to provide for the establishment of the Rural Health System Innovation Center, revise provisions relative to the Certificate of Need, provide for the establishment of micro-hospitals, provide for a grant program for insurance, premium assistance for physicians practicing in medically underserved rural areas of the state, to amend Code Section 48729.20, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I bring to you today the Health and Human Services Senate version of House Bill 769. Before I get started on the details of the bill, I would like to thank some people who worked really hard this year to try to help rural Georgia and rural health care in particular. Of course, the President of the Senate with his health care task force, and with his support of the senator from the 26 rural council that we went all over the state with the senator from the 15th, the senator from the 12th, senator from the 51st, we heard a lot of first-person stories of the struggles, both economic development and healthcare issues that are facing rural Georgia. I also want to thank the Speaker, Chairman Powell, and Chairman England for the work they did in the House Rural Development Council. They traveled all over the state as well, and the bill that we're hearing today is a result of that venture, and I'm glad to present it to my colleagues here in the Senate. This bill has a lot of components, and I'm going to briefly touch on those. Remote order pharmacy is a technical issue that will help rural hospitals obtain pharmacy services over the weekend. The Rural Health Innovation Center piece of the bill is the Senate version merged with the House version of the Innovation Center. And think of this as the academic arm. For any new healthcare program, we need to make sure we understand the goals and understand deliverables and can hold agencies and the private sector accountable for outcomes. And that Innovation Center is designed to do just that. The bill allows micro-hospitals for contiguous counties, which will help save some of the struggling rural hospitals with a new model. And it also increases the rural hospital tax credit to 100% and extends the sunset on that to 5 years, which is kind of the new Senate recommendation for any tax bills, is to be sunset at 5 years. That's the highlights of the bill. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I yield the well, Mr. President.
No questions, Senator. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute is objection. Without objection, committee substitute is adopted. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection agreed, report of committee which fail pass the bill? Chairs none, report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chairs none, main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 18th to recognize some very special queens that we have with us today.
Thank you, Governor. I am tickled to present to you some real pretty girls, and they are behind us. They are the 2017 Miss Georgia Peach Queens. We've got Tiny Miss Queen, Addison Ricketson, and Little Miss Peach Queen, Amelia Reed. The Junior Miss Peach Queen for 2017 is Charlie Harper, and the Teen Miss Peach Queen is Bella Hayes, and the Miss Georgia Peach, Sydney Locke, is also with us, and also Miss Long. Where are you, Miss Long? She's escorting them today, and I'm proud to get to represent Peach County. These are some of the finest folks that come out of Peach County and get to represent Peach County in this beauty contest. So y'all give them a warm welcome on behalf of the Senate. Thank you.
On the pass the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 3, and this bill, having received constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Secretary now will read House Bill 831.
House Bill 831 by Representative Rogers of the 10th and others. A bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 9, Title 49 of the OCGA relating transfer of Division of Rehabilitation Services to the Department of Labor so as to establish the employment First Georgia Council to provide for legislative findings and declarations, provide for membership duties, terms of office, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 30th present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 831 establishes an Employment First Georgia Council. The council, composed of 14 members, shall be assigned to the Department of Human Services and be staffed by the GVRA. The 14 members that will be on the council are listed on page 2 from lines 39 to 59 if you want to see who they are. The purpose of the council is to advise the General Assembly, the governor, and the state agencies of policies that recognize competitive integrated employment for those with disabilities. Now, it says disabilities in the bill. I prefer to think of it as challenges different than the ones we each have ourselves. The responsibilities are to develop training plans, coordinate with other state, federal, and private entities to increase awareness, evaluate the funding mechanism for services, review and make recommendations in a biannual report. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 41st for a question.
Thank you, Senator. I was glad I was able to explain that to you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 36th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I will yield.
Senator, isn't it true that this is a long-awaited development for people with differently abled, as you say, to be able to start opening more doors for employment in the private sector and the public sector?
Senator, you know better than I how long this has been in the works, and I wish everybody in the chamber could have been in the committee meeting that we had where the individuals came and presented their case before us, and what they're asking for is a right and the ability to lead a quality of life they find fulfilling, to be a contributing member of society and just be able to have a job. So I appreciate the work that y'all did before I got here and the work that we've done since I've been here, and I appreciate y'all supporting the bill.
Thank you, and appreciate your leadership on it as well. And as is stated in the bill, when we do a cultural shift to open the doors of employment, gainfully employed people are positive contributors to society, and it's a win-win for employers, employees, and the general public. Isn't that true?
That is correct, Senator. I think all that want to have a job ought to have the ability to have a job because it does improve their own quality of life and their status.
Thank you, Senator.
No further questions.
I yield the well. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 41st to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to applaud Representative Rogers, the House sponsor, and our Senate floor sponsor. This is an excellent bill. And I mainly wanted to come down to thank the thousands of Georgia employers who help people with disabilities get employed to become earning, active members of our state. They live better lives, longer lives, and much more enjoyable lives. This is a great bill, and I just commend it to you all, and thank you all for hopefully a unanimous vote for House Bill 831.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the President Pro Tem of the body, Senator from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't take much of the chamber. I'll try not to take much of the chamber's time. I had a comment or two in rules when this bill came through. And this bill really is about helping people who want to help themselves. You know, there are a lot of young people in this state and in this world, in this country, that have a disability, and when they graduate from high school with sometimes not a standard diploma, sometimes a certificate, they graduate from high school to the couch, and they go home and they play video games, and they don't have any meaningful, purposeful, productive work. They don't become taxpayers. They don't have an opportunity to contribute to their community. But this bill gives those individuals an opportunity, gives them a seat at the table. It gives them an opportunity to earn not only a wage, but to earn pride and to earn self-esteem. And we can do a lot of things to help folks, but when self-help is the greatest help of all. And that's just, this is a bill that will be instrumental in getting people employed who really want to have a job. Young man I know recently, a year or so ago, he had his first job. And it's been a few years ago. And he would have been a young man who would have possibly been on Social Security and had an income from the state or from the federal government and would not have been an opportunity to earn a meaningful wage. And he showed me his paycheck stub. Showed me his paycheck stub when he got his first check. And he was so proud. And he said, "Daddy, I'm not on," he said, "I'm not on the government tip." And it was a moment that I realized that every individual has an opportunity to earn and to achieve at their level. And with help from others, they can go far beyond anything that was expected of them. And I want to thank the men and women in this room and in these hallways for having the foresight and the strength and the conviction to help those folks who need not a handout, they just need a hand up. Mr. President, I yield the will.
Thank you, Senator. Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? As the objection agreed, the Porter Committee which failed pass the bill. Chairs none. Porter Committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? The objection. Chairs none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the pass the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 1, and this bill, item C, represents constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th.
Move for reconsideration.
No comment, Senator. Secretary will read House Bill 844.
House Bill 844 by Representative Houston of the 170th and others. The bill will be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 30 of the OCGA relating to handicapped persons generally so as to revise provisions relating to the Georgia Commission on Hearing Impaired and Deaf Persons, to provide for definitions, to expand the membership of the Commission, to establish a task force to require use of existing assessments to monitor individual children's language and literacy progress, to develop a statewide coordinated longitudinal data management system for all children who are deaf or hard of hearing, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 9th. Present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the early 2000s, we've been screening all children born in Georgia for hearing loss upon their birth. I was proud last year to carry legislation that made hearing aids available to children all over this state. That was a big step for us. It's having a very positive impact on our state. However, there's children who are deaf and hard of hearing continue to struggle with literacy. And we must make some changes in how we address their education to give them a better opportunity to succeed. I see this as part 3 on our journey that we began back in 2002. Today, approximately 3% of these children are proficient readers. This is not a statistic that I believe we can live with, and this legislation will allow us to create a successful learning trajectory for these children and for their success. The building makes some important changes to the commission to better equip them to be able to set policies in order to give these children a better chance. And then finally, it sets up some data sharing between various agencies so that they can track and hold areas accountable to make sure that these children are not falling through the cracks. I believe this bill shows that we're prioritizing the educational needs for these important Georgians, and it will give them a path for success and provide hope for them and their parents.
No question.
I hope you'll help me in passing 844, HB 844. I yield the well.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is the objection granted? Report of committee which fair will pass the bill. Chairs none. Report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Any objections? Chairs none. Main question order. Shall this bill now pass? Question on the pass of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine.
On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, read Bill HB 907.
House Bill 907 by Representative Fleming of the 121st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to variation of office and to provide the appointment and election of a successor in the event of a vacancy of office of district attorney and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass by Senator Stone of the 23rd. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, HB 907 is a bill
that will make the election of district attorneys consistent with the manner in which judges are elected in Georgia. The effect would be that once a DA is appointed to fill a vacancy and faces the voters in a general election in November, then they will have the same 4-year term from that point that Superior Court judges are given. This is something that's strongly supported by our district attorneys, and I would urge your support of HB 907. Be happy to answer questions.
Senator, there are no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you'll unlock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is thereby passed. Mr. Secretary, if you will read House Resolution 1090.
House Resolution 1090 by Representative Watson, the 172nd and others, a resolution authorizing the change of use of certain property located in Jeff Davis County, currently dedicated as a heritage preserve, and authorizing the granting of a revocable license agreement and a non-exclusive easement for the construction, operation, and maintenance of facilities and ingress and egress in, on, over, under, upon, across, or through certain state-owned real property located in Jeff Davis County, authorizing the change of use of certain property located in Crisp County, currently dedicated as a heritage preserve, and authorizing the granting of a revocable license agreement and non-exclusive easement for the construction, operation, and maintenance of facilities and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, this is a simple bill. You'll see these bills year to year. This bill transfers land that is currently owned by the Department of Natural Resources. It transfers the land to the Department of Transportation for 2 DOT projects. One is to widen State Route 30, US 280 in Crisp County, and the other project is to replace a bridge on State Route 135 and do some road widening. Mr. President, I'll yield for questions.
There are no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall the resolution now be adopted? The question's on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you'll unlock the machines. About day 40 we'll be On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is thereby adopted. Mr. Secretary, if you'll read House Resolution 1104.
House Resolution 1104 by Representatives Green of the 151st and others, a resolution authorizing the granting of non-exclusive easements for the construction, operation, and maintenance of facilities, utilities, roads, and egress in, on, over, under, upon, across, or through property owned by the state of Georgia and Bartow, Bullock, Butts, Chatham, Clay, Columbia, Emmanuel, Floyd, Forsyth, Fulton, Harris, Henry, Liberty, Macon, Montgomery, Murray, Tatnall, Towns, and White counties, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on State Institutions and Property offers the following substitute to House Resolution 1104, a resolution authorizing the granting of non-exclusive easements for the construction, operation, and maintenance of facilities, utilities, roads, and egress in, on, over, under, upon, across, or through property owned by the state of Georgia and Bartow, Bullock, Butts, Chatham, Clay, Columbia, DeKalb, Emmanuel, Floyd, Forsyth, Fulton, Hall, Harris, Henry, Liberty, Macon, Montgomery, Murray, Richmond, Tatnall, Towns, and White counties, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a simple housekeeping bill from the State Properties Commission, and those senators and representatives involved have been notified regarding these changes. It authorizes the grant of non-exclusive easement in state-owned property located in the counties previously mentioned that's in the bill. It describes in detail the property being affected. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I yield the well. The green.
There are no questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Shall the main question now be put? Excuse me, are there any other senators wish to speak for or against the resolution? Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution by committee? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question now be put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is now ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? The question's on the adoption of the resolution by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you unlock the machines. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 46 and nays are 0. This resolution, having received the constitutional majority, is thereby adopted. At this time, I recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Monday, March 19th.
The majority leader, Mr. Secretary, read the announcements.
Rules will meet upon adjournment at 4:50 at the Capitol. Health and Human Services will meet at 1 p.m. and 4:50 at the Capitol. Agriculture and Consumer Affairs will meet at 2 p.m. and 1:25 at the Capitol. State and local government operations has been canceled. Regulated Industries and Utilities will meet at 2 p.m. and 4:50 at the Capitol. Government Oversight will meet at 3 p.m. and 1:25 at the Capitol. Ethics will meet at 3 p.m. and 3:07 at the CLOB. Judiciary will meet at 4 p.m. and 3:07 at the CLOB. That concludes the order.
The majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Monday, March 19, 2018 at 10 a.m. All those in favor say yea. All those opposed, nay. Nay. All those opposed. That was mighty weak. All those opposed. The yeas clearly have it. We stand adjourned.